question for today in this episode of AI Insights is, what will happen to in-person events based on AI? We all know, or most people had events that were canceled or, done away with during the pandemic. In-person events are starting to make a comeback now, but will AI affect them? Will it reduce them, increase them, improve them? That's a question for today as we meet again with Stephen Bowman, software guru, AI expert. So let's jump right in. Well, what about this? Now we've been talking about people interacting with computers. Now we're talking about people interacting with people and whether AI will improve that.
Um, so a big part of why this is such an interesting topic for me is because I was just at an in-person event yesterday.
Hmm.
And I noticed a couple of things. First and foremost was I noticed that nobody discussed AI at all,
Seriously.
which was absolutely shocking to me. I was the only person who even brought it up in the entire room. At one point in time, there was about 125 people in the room. There were 4 speakers and then a keynote, and nobody mentioned AI. Nobody mentioned AI capabilities. I thought it was very odd
What was the
that.
subject for the day? What was the
So we had multiple. There was one gentleman who talked about company culture. There was another gentleman who talked about uh, we'll call it building sales teams. Both of those were more corporate traditional approaches and implementations. A third person spoke about personal branding. They actually did a lot of work talking about USP, which I thought was extremely interesting because I've written AI bots that walk
right?
you through building your own USP. We had a very fun conversation after her presentation. And the last person talked about very similarly, we'll call it employee relations and onboarding, that kind of stuff, which again really tweaks my mind because of all of the bot AI agent, chatbot,
Yeah,
digital.
right. That are being inserted into the recruiting and acquisition process.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
I can't imagine, I mean, even if they're speaking corporate, I mean, larger companies from sales and marketing, I mean, that was the first area that was impacted or affected positively, depending on which way you want to look at it, or both, by AI. I can't imagine that it wouldn't have even been, a side note or something, not just the topic of it.
This is the big part of why this is so intriguing to me. um, I honestly believe that AI and the effects, I think this is a good example. I believe that the effects of AI in particularly, it's going to start with smaller businesses. So I think that there's a lot of solopreneurs. I think that there's a lot of very small companies that the services that they currently provide are going to be dramatically affected by AI. And in-person events, especially in the short to medium term, so let's say the next couple of years, are going to be ultra critical for the small solopreneur and the small entrepreneur. And the reason why is because they're still going to be relying on their personal network and personal connections much more than anything else for new business. I think a lot of the larger businesses are going to invest heavily in AI. They're going to automate amazing amounts of whether it's marketing, sales, pre-qualification, and even operations in their business, which is going to put significant pressure. They're going to be able to do more for less faster, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on the small business and the solopreneur. And that's why these events are going to be so much more valuable for them. Moving further on, I think that these kind of events would be greatly enhanced by talking about AI, by interacting with AI, by providing how-to sessions about how to use AI. As I scanned the room and talked to a couple of dozen people yesterday, I got the feeling if you're hearing the sound of my voice, and that means you've got some interest in AI, you're already in, 80-20, you're already in that top percentile, because I was absolutely shocked at how few people were familiar. Or one of the first questions that I asked after we got past pleasantries and that kind of stuff, I just asked,
Right.
hey, how are you using AI? Are you using it on a regular basis? And the results, the answers that I got back were most people had a rather benign kind of, yeah, I mean, I asked ChatGPT a question every now and again, and that was it. Now, interestingly, of the 4 speakers who spoke, I had the most engaging conversations with them about AI, because even though their presentations weren't about AI, they all used AI to help them with their presentation.
Really?
All 4 of them. Yes.
So so that's interesting. So did they use it for um, just background research? Did they use it for outlining? What did they use it for? Or was it just varied across people?
It was varied across people. One used it for some image generation, which was neat. Some of the images that were produced were pretty visually appealing. One guy streamlined it. The other guy said that he used it for better headlines on the slides, which I thought was, okay, that's interesting. At least you're using it.
It wasn't the marketing presentation, was it?
No, amazingly. Um, and the other one was she said she's a very creative person, but sometimes she gets kind of idea block or writer's block, if you will. And she used it in conversation. And I thought this was easily the most appealing. She used it in conversation to work out the kinks with the message that she wanted to deploy. And the message that she wanted all of us to get was, goodness, excuse me, the message that she wanted everybody to get was to use a coach or a coach type relationship to advance entrepreneurial thinking about team building. She was very intra team building. Interesting topics, great people. Met a lot of nice people, and I found that it was actually a bit of a drive for me, and it was much closer to where I grew up when I lived here in Michigan. And a bunch of people knew my last name, and it's the family that I've got in that area of the world. And right, so great interpersonal relationships. And, never in the world would I ever want a message that I'm saying right now to be misconstrued. In-person events are absolutely critical. If you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're looking to advance your career, if you just want to get outside opinions on things, you don't have to say anything. You could be a wallflower. Getting out into the world and interacting with other people in your own way, I can't promote it enough. I can't encourage it enough. You'll see it in my YouTube videos. They're all over the NSoftTech YouTube channel. Get out as much as possible. It's kind of a Perryism as well. Mike, I'm sure you've probably heard Perry talk about it, Perry Marshall talk about it.
Right.
Get out of your comfort zone, get on an airplane, go somewhere else, meet interesting people, have interesting conversation. Perry's got a little quadrant, we call that sweetness time. And it's important. It's important to get out and interact with other people. And I'd love to hear your opinion. It may be the most important skill that you can cultivate now to help yourself in the next couple of years.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So absent the place, the conference, mini conference you went to this week, what have you seen that were some of the best uses or applications of AI to improve the in-person experience outside of the speakers, right? All right, so we can figure that. That's like doing a paper or you're doing a speech, right? You can use it in a number of ways to help do the illustrations, help with cleanup, check the, the reading level, all sorts of things that can be done. I kind of get from the speaker standpoint because that's like from an individual standpoint.
Yep.
Anything you've seen that, made you go, from an audience perspective, real
Yes,
time?
yes. It's going to sound silly. So I travel, I don't know, let's say I hit 8 in-person events a year all over the US, sometimes in Chicago or This year
Mhm.
was Chicago, San Diego, Dallas, Orlando, Philadelphia, right? I try to take my own medicine and get out there and talk to and meet new people and engage new people. I'm actually going to be on a Midwest driving tour to do the exact same thing for the remainder of the year because it's that important to me. But one of the things that I really, number one, respect, and number two, greatly appreciate is the actual user experience at an event. So
Right.
just something as simple as um, a glass and water at the table for every attendee. There's 8 chairs, there's napkins, everybody's got a goodie bag, but there was no water.
Oh, that's kind of critical for an in-person event.
I think so. So how does AI fit into that? Well, I'm positive that with a quick conversation with a chatbot like ChatGPT, they could generate me a list of preferred items to have on every table that could be a checklist for the staff at the event. Now, 3/4 of the way through the presentations, somebody must have complained because glasses of water and pitchers of water all made themselves to the table, almost on cue, just a little bit late. But that the things that we almost overlook or the things that we maybe take for granted or think that somebody else is going to do, to be able to think, okay, and to ask ChatGPT, to ask an AI agent, to go through a checklist, or to say, hey, I want you to be a hotel concierge, and I want you to make this the best event you can possibly make it for everybody who's going to attend. What are the small details we can make sure that the staff implements before, during, and after to make this the best thing ever? And generative AI is going to go out and it's already scraped the internet. It's going to compile that list. It's going to build the checklist. It's going to make suggestions. And I can almost guarantee you it's going to say things that you and I wouldn't think about. It's going to say things that a seasoned event coordinator might not have thought about. A good example. One of the things that I absolutely love about Perry events is, right, as entrepreneurs, if you guys don't know, Perry Marshall, Business Mastery. So these are entrepreneurs and business owners. We're fidgety. I'm over here working with my hands all the time, right? I'm rubbing and scratching and whatever. I can't sit still. Most of the time it's personality quirk, whatever it is. It's all good. It's me. I fully accept it. Every Perry event, every seat has a little fidget gadget. So sometimes they're markers, and sometimes it's Play-Doh, and other times it's these curly little things or a barrel of monkeys or whatever, because given the personalities that are there and given the tendencies of those personalities, there's tiny little implements that make a big difference for somebody. When somebody's nervous, they're going to pick something up off the table and get to fidget, or I use my pen. I learned that trick a long time ago, right? Channel all of that nervous energy into your pen. Not everybody knows to do that stuff, but they've still got a strong message. Help them break that. I am positive that AI has heard other people talk about this, understands that, and would make suggestions similar to that to help break tension, help nervousness, keep people engaged, maybe even give them a temporary distraction. But just having that conversation, I think that's in my mind, that was a perfect example. I'm so glad you asked that, because that was a perfect example as I'm sitting there yesterday looking at the blank white tablecloth, wondering, I wonder if the event coordinator can ask AI anything about how to set this up. Literally, the thought went through my head.
Okay, good. So I'm going to take it a slightly different. We'll come back to the events, but let's talk about finding events. Since you said this is really important to get out and about doing this kind of thing. Obviously, I could go to Meetup, and see if there's anything going on. But a lot of conferences and business meetings don't always show up on Meetup. So can AI help there? Let's say I'm inspired and say, okay, I'm going to do a driving tour, here before Thanksgiving in the US, right? Before a time traditionally people just kind of don't do business meetings as much. It's all holiday celebrations. So how would I use AI to help identify, well, these might be some places to go or to attend, or even to, especially for someone from a marketing perspective, to present that, right? Because it used to be if you wanted to go and speak, you had to go to a speaker's agency or know of a conference. You know, you had to look in newspaper listings or whatever. In the digital age and with AI, is that improved or is it just kind of the same? I mean, any thoughts on that?
Phenomenal question, and I'm not kidding. Here's a conversation I just recently had with AI about my Midwest tour. So I, like you, had the thought of, hey, how can I use AI in an effort to find new opportunities, to find new um, uh, uh, events, new groups of people. And here's my prompt. I'm not going to read it, but it basically says,
But go back to the top, so because it's
I'm an entrepreneur. I'm an AI entrepreneur. I've got 25 years in software development. I've done X and Y and Z. This is my goal. This is where I want to go. This is what I want to accomplish by doing it. I'm going to hit the road. This is the stage of my current business right now. And then I said, please ask me any additional questions that I need to answer in order to get the best, for you to help me the best, to get the best results
great,
out of our
right?
conversation. It came back and asked me 5 questions. Do you have a geographical focus? Do you have an industry focus? What type of events do you want? Do you want conferences, trade shows, networking events, or just mixers? Or do you just want to go where people are drinking? You know, what are you into? Time frame. I said next week. He said, I don't know, right? I only scrape data up to October 2023, and the current date is September
Oh,
2024.
that could be a problem.
I don't have exact details, but I can guide you to find those events quickly. Next, do you have a budget? Do you have a budget? Are you going to fly? Are you going to drive, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So I answered, of course, I said, these are great questions. And
Okay,
then,
yeah, so explain this one about asking them interview style. What's the deal
okay.
about that?
So for me personally, I've got this bad habit of hitting enter. So when
Okay, now, yeah, now I resonate with you. I do that sometimes in messages, and it's like half of a sentence, and or it's like, uh-oh.
exactly. So AI will ask me 5 great questions, and I'll get done with question number 1, and I'll hit the enter key. And it thinks I answered all 5 questions, and it gives me a response. And that's why I've trained myself and have trained the agent here. No, wait a minute. Those are awesome questions, and I want to answer every single one. Ask me one at a time, interview style. And it does. It remembers exactly the context. It knows exactly what I'm asking it, and it puts me through my paces. Great. I'd be happy to ask you the questions one at a time. I'm training it. I'm giving it instruction on how I want it to use it best, how we can interact best, and away we go. So I answered the questions one at a time. And it thinks in between. This is the, if you're not familiar with, this is the new model. This is O1 preview. So this is the Chat GPT
Our
4
strawberry friend.
O1 strawberry, exactly. And this explains in some way what it's doing when it's thinking. So it came back and said, okay, I've got all of your answers, and then here's a bunch of suggestions. And it rattled off a ton of suggestions. Some things I knew, other things I didn't. Some platforms I knew, other platforms I didn't. So Eventbrite, I knew. I didn't know that LinkedIn had events that were meaningful. I looked it up. Maybe not for me, that's okay. I had totally forgotten about Meetup. It knew that, again, he said, go talk to chambers of commerce or economic development corporations, EDCs. SCORE, I was not familiar with SCORE, sorry. I was not familiar with score, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right down the, again, interacting with AI, asking it questions, telling it a story, and then giving it permission instead of saying, okay, now give me the results, and I'm just going to go run off into the corner. By interacting with it and saying, hey, I don't know what I don't know. Can you teach me, or can you help me by asking me about things that I've left out that would be beneficial to giving me the best results? It helped me learn what I didn't know. And then, of course, it gave me all kinds of output that I had either never thought of or didn't know. Social media, 10 times actually turned out to be a great platform. I'd never heard of that. Let's see, convention centers and hotels. So I looked up the biggest hotels for me, it was Detroit, Indianapolis, and Cleveland, and found 2 events this year, one in Indianapolis, one in Cleveland, that actually really caught my attention because it was essentially how to implement technology in financial services firms. And I've got a lot of experience there. I could go have some really cool conversations, and who knows what it turns into from there. But the idea is simple. I never would have thought to go to the hotel and look at their event calendar. Alerts and subscriptions. Yeah, talk to existing folks. And then they also suggested, hey, it's not your first preference, but attend virtual events. And then that may lead to people talking about in-person events. And then it said action steps for the next week because I told it I want to get started in the next week. It interpreted that as me actually driving in the next week or flying in the next week. And it came up with a little bit of a plan. Dropped it right on me, gave me additional tips. I thought this was cute. It said, know your USP. Oh, I'm sorry, Mike, we got you muted somehow.
No, that's all right. I'm back. So I'm fascinated by the fact that it actually uses the term value proposition as opposed to elevator speech or, explaining what you do, or that the concept of a value proposition, this is a side note, has become enough prevalent that it even comes up from ChatGPT.
Yeah, as suggestions on what to do in in-person events.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah, again, bring marketing materials. I'm old school. I actually still use business cards. Leverage testimonials. I thought that was an interesting suggestion. And then free consultation. Yeah. Right fit. Who knows where it goes, right? But yes, I thought that using AI to leverage its combined knowledge on how to help set up the things that I wanted to do to find more networking opportunities. Because again, for me, a lot of the times, the way that I use AI, I use it in 1 or 2 ways. Number one is, hey, I've got a task. This goes all the way back to T's and V's, right? I've got a task. I need AI to do it for me. I can give it very specific instructions, and then we can iterate if it's not what if my instructions were not good enough. Or
Right.
I use it as a brainstorming partner. And when I use it as a brainstorming partner, I look at AI as the expert, and I'm just there to ask dumb questions and expand my knowledge on a subject. And it works great for that. And this, hopefully you see that what a great little back and forth, helping me know and learn and find out things that I wouldn't have.
Yeah, that was cool. I didn't realize you had done that when I asked the question.
No, it was a great lead-in.
Anything else about in-person interactions that AI in the near term can help? I mean, when I say near term, I'm limiting it to not using like actual robots, dealing with people or, serving hors d'oeuvres or whatever, right? It's more of is something else as opposed to that kind of physical presence. Now, it
Well,
could be monitors as a physical presence, but I'm not talking about robots necessarily. I just want to clarify that.
sure. So another perfect example that I think should be included, and it's such a simple thing to do. Um, Record all of the presentations. Transcribe all of the presentations. Give everybody who attended access to the video, the transcription, provide them with summaries. A lot of times when I go to these in-person events, I'm not frantically taking notes because I'm actually trying to engage with the other people that are there. I have plenty of ideas, and sure, right? I'm a big journal guy, right? I had my journal there, and I took some notes for sure. But there's little nuance and little details in the presentations that were given that I know were missed. And okay, maybe it takes a licensing fee, or maybe you put it in the documentation that people sign when they agree to be a speaker. Hey, we're going to provide a summary. We're going to provide a transcript.
Right.
We're going to provide a video to the people who show. Are you okay with that? Answer yes, no. You figure out all of the legality or all of the agreement stuff that you need to when you do that. But it is a service to the people who were there. And with an AI agent, it's 5 minutes worth of work. And it's really hard to know what type of effect that would have on somebody who says, oh my gosh, Steve was up there and he used a word and I can't remember what he said, but it was really important. And the ability to go, or even just to load all of that transcript into a bot on your website for an event and say, hey, what was the keyword Steve used about 10 minutes of the way through his presentation? And it'll go ask the transcript and provide an answer. And again, these are all very, 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 very simplistic ways to use AI to really up the user experience without having them worry about their job being stolen by a robot, or
Right. Yeah.
the robot server spilling water on them, or whatever it is.
Well, I like that idea because many times when I've gone to events or even training, right, you're trying to understand and keep up with the flow and, get enough understanding as you go. I mean, obviously you go back later and look up stuff you're interested in, right? But it's hard to know when you find something interesting if I'm only coming in and out of the presentation because I'm trying to make a detailed note and then I've already missed 2 or 3 minutes, right? That could be the key linking pin to the next section. And it's like, uh-oh, it must have
Yes,
said something important because I don't know how we got to where we are now.
yes,
And I've
yes,
had that happen before, right? Trying to balance the note taking versus the listening.
absolutely. Another thought that I had um, is that some of the best points, some of the best conversation topics, some of the best thought provokers are the questions that the presenters are asked after they're done with their presentation.
Right.
They go through their entire presentation and they say, does anybody have any questions? And somebody stands up and hits them with a really good one. And that interaction, which is absolutely critical, right? That human interaction that sparks ideas, that sparks new thought process, that kicks off, conversations over at the cocktail bar, whatever it is, right? We could capture that and very easily integrate it by using a quick, simple AI tool.
Okay. Awesome. What else? Any other thoughts you have on this particular subject for today?
Um, I'll just throw up. I don't think in-person events are going anywhere. I'll be very sad if they do. I think it's really important. And again, if I can encourage anybody to do it, if you haven't done it, do it. If you do it a lot, congratulations. But yeah, get out there, interact with other people, live life. It's great advice. I got it from Perry. I put it to good use in my life, and I recommend it too. Even if you're a weirdo, introvert, software developing engineer like I am, who lives in the woods.
In the woods, right? Um, okay, any other thoughts for today in this edition before we leave? We've covered a fair amount about in-person events, or at least gotten started, right? Because there's probably more we could go, but some main things. Anything else for today?
Uh, You know, there's a couple of news stories that I want to throw out there.
Okay, briefly highlight, right? Yep.
Yeah, really fast. So the godfather of AI, Jeffrey Hinton, has been awarded the Nobel Prize in physics.
I have
This
some heartburn with that, and I can tell you why.
um, this gentleman has expressed concern about the risks AI could
Right.
pose to humanity. So you, as we talked about last week, it's not all unicorns and rainbows, right? There's good news, there's bad news. You'll get it. You know, there's no sugarcoating here. I just thought that it was very interesting that people acknowledged his work, and the work that he did to help propel AI to the forefront. And I also thought it was very interesting that he's got a little bit of a warning if we're not careful with it.
Right.
Um,
I did find that interesting. My heartburn is actually calling him the godfather of AI
okay.
because I think maybe the godfather of generative AI might
Oh,
be
sure.
more appropriate because it completely leaves out people like Marvin Minsky, Claude Shannon, I
Yes.
mean, we could just go down the list. Um, um, even Alan Turing, right? I mean, the Turing
Yes.
test, but we're using AI.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot of that was the part that I was like, oh, this is cool. They're actually doing computer scientists, right? Which you don't see too often, or where they focused. But yeah, I mean, I can see it from a generative AI on that. It was just that, well, you're just missing like decades of stuff, and in one case, a century of stuff that went on ahead of time that really formed the basis of it. I mean,
I
Herbert Simon was a Nobel laureate, and he was one of the key people involved early on in AI, but Marvin Minsky wasn't, and he was a major. I mean, like I said, we could go down the list. All right, enough on that one. Second news item.
No, it's absolutely valid. And to your point, I think that's more, we'll call it, news spin, if you will, because they throw AI out there, but there's a big difference between all of the computing and AI technology that went into generative AI. But I don't know, generative is too long of a word for the fifth grade reading level that they're stuffing down everybody's neck.
Probably. Plus, it's also the tyranny, sometimes in awards, the tyranny of the current, right? As opposed to looking all the way back through. But yes, they did some most excellent work, so I don't begrudge them that. It's just some of the terminology around it.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. The other thing that I wanted to touch on, and this is just a thought that I had, and this is something that I'll be using AI to play with this thought stream here, is there seems to be a lot of angst. There seems to be a lot of the business owners that I talk to, there's still this feeling about, I don't know where to start with AI, or um, is now the right time to do it? Should I be implementing things now? I just still feel this angst, this general angst is the best word that I can use to describe it, in a lot of the people that I talk to. And I saw this article today that says that there is a new humanoid robot that will be produced and ready to be used in your home as early as next year. It's called a Neo, Neo, like Neo from the Matrix, Neo, Neo Beta, Neo Beta as an alpha beta. It's a humanoid robot from a company called 1X Technologies, and it's only about 66 pounds. It's got a runtime of about 4 hours. It walks at a mile and a half an hour, or 1.5 miles per hour. It runs at 7.5 miles per hour. I thought that was pretty interesting. It can lift, I don't remember what it said, 50 or 75 pounds. But it can actually do like chores. It can do dishes. It can it can interact with any other smart device in your home. I thought that was pretty neat. It's an added layer of security in your home. So I got to thinking to myself, would I actually do this? Would I get a robot and put it in my house? And for me, the answer is heck yeah. But I thought, what better way to get AI, to get the entire populace more comfortable with AI than to insert it into their lives on a daily basis to make their lives, we'll just call it better, right? I worked in restaurants when I was young, and I hate dishes. Oh my gosh, I hate dishes because if you've ever worked in a kitchen professionally, you'll
Right.
find out
Yes.
sooner or later the dishwashers don't show and you need something clean, so that means you're doing dishes. And by the time you get to the point, if you ever do, and you're running kitchens, you'll find out half of your job is doing dishes. I can't stand it. It's a pet peeve. I'm a weirdo. I fully accept it. With that being said, my wife doesn't like dishes either. If I had a robot that could do dishes, the quality of life in my house would definitely elevate. So I just thought, number one, that would be really neat. Number two, what if if the general society has some level of angst about AI, what better way to inject it into mainstream than to get a robot, shall we say, that you can actually interact with that makes life or task or something easier or better. And that's exactly what I see in the neo betas. It's a gateway drug, if you will, into whatever the next phase of this might be. I have no idea what that is. If you look at Tesla and what Elon Musk is thinking, it sounds like factory work is going to be humanoid robots in no time flat. I think we've got time. But I just thought it was a neat segue and a neat way to introduce this to more mainstream because it's all powered by generative AI,
Mhm.
the inner workings of
That's cool. We can probably do a follow-up on some point on that too, right? And then once
it.
they come out, or when they have a little more information about what they could do, because there's probably things you could have it to do that they're not even thinking of.
I'm quite sure. Quite sure.
All right. Well, that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching, and join us again for another episode of AI Insights. Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. And as we step away, just best wishes and prayers to all the people in Florida. Mike and I talked about it. Mike lived in Florida a long time. I lived in Florida a long time. Hope and best wishes and prayers for you. Good luck. You'll be fine.